She was still.
Good evening, and welcome to the September 5th, 2023 final public hearing and adoption of the final millage and budget. Ms. Rose Rainick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight we'll be presenting the superintendent's final millage for adoption, the taxing authority of the School Board of Madison County and the total of Madison County, Florida. The total millage rate that's going to be levied based on this meeting would be 5.434 mills, which is 13.72% of the rollback rate from last year. And we are making the recommendation that you approve each of these final millage rates, and that you get some input from the public, and then move on to the agenda, and move on to the budget.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Rainick. At this point, we'll have a time for public comment. Seeing that there's no public comment, we'll move on.
We recommend that you adopt the required local effort of 3.186 for the 23-24 school year, fiscal year.
Do we have a motion to approve the required local effort, RLE, of 3.186?
I move we approve the required local effort of 3.186.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Becky, 4-1. Do we have a motion to approve the discretionary millage rate of 0.748?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the discretionary millage rate of 0.748.
We have a motion by Ms. Hagan, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carroll. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Becky, 4-1. Do we have a motion to approve the capital outlay millage rate of 1.500?
I move we approve the capital outlay rate of 1.500.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Becky, 4-1. Do we have a motion to approve the total millage rate of 5.434?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the total millage rate of 5.434.
We have a motion by Ms. Hagan, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carroll. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Becky, 4-1. Do we have a motion for the approval to adopt the superintendent's final budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024?
I move we approve the superintendent's budget for the fiscal year July 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed? Becky, 5-0.
Please note that the taxing authority of the School Board of Madison County, Florida, the final budget amount is $42,289,974.59 for the fiscal year of 23-24.
Thank you, Ms. Rainick.
Thank you.
Now we'll go on to our regular meeting. Welcome to the Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 board meeting. Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a presentation tonight by Miss April Griffin. From Florida School Board Association.
Good evening,
evening.
Superintendent Joseph, board
Good evening.
members.
Good evening.
I appreciate y'all letting me come and do this on very short notice. I'm going to be in the area for the next 2 days, so I wanted to get you your distinction because you've earned it. I am here tonight to present you with a plaque that designates the Madison County School Board as a certified master board through the Florida School Boards Association program. And what this means is that you have valued and put time and effort into becoming more of a team and working together because we all know that that's what's best for the kids. Studies have shown that school boards and superintendents that work together cause student achievement to rise and the district culture to become more positive. And with a positive district culture, everybody's more happy and wants to be here, and I appreciate it. And, you know, at times like these, with what this county has just been through over the past couple days, and people are still dealing with the effects of the hurricane, it's important for people to understand that you take your job serious. You're here when you probably would rather be somewhere else because this is important and you're doing the business of the school district. So I wanted to personally thank you for that and to present you with your plaque. And if y'all don't mind coming down, I'm gonna get somebody to take a picture. I'm not prepared for that, so hold on just a second. Do y'all come on down? You want to take a picture?
Come on down.
Well, now, can anybody else take a real good picture? And I will definitely say that for hurricane and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So here we go. Is everybody in? Come this way. Yeah. It's that's fine. And we look like a kid. All right. 1, 2. All right. Thank you very much. And congratulations. I'll give you a little handshake. Sure, sure. Thank you. Oh, go. I'm gonna stop it.
Thank you, Ms. Griffin. We appreciate you coming tonight, and thank you for all you've done for us. Okay, we have some amendments to the agenda tonight. Under public comment, we will have 3.2, hurricane relief update.
3.2?
3.2, under public comment.
Hurricane who?
Hurricane relief update.
Okay, I got it.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right. And then under items for individual consideration, 5.1A, emergency procurement agreement. 5.1A, emergency procurement agreement. 5.1B, AFR annual financial report. Which one? Annual financial report. All right.
Thank you.
All right, under personnel changes, we will be adding, you'll notice under that, under the amendments, they added volunteers.
You want to read number 5.1 for personnel to 5.1C?
5.1C, that will be, 5.1C is personnel changes. That'll be 5.1C. So we have a 5.1A, emerging procurement agreement, 5.1B AFR, and 5.1C personnel changes. Volunteers have been added. And I'll just make a note, at 5.2, under staffing allocation plan, there'll be no action on that tonight.
5.2 who?
Yes, 5.2, staffing allocation, there'll be no
No
action.
action.
All right. At this point, I'd like to adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. Public comment, we have Mr. Thigpen. Mr. Thigpen, would you mind if we moved you over to the hurricane relief update, which we're about to do?
Sure, that's fine.
Oh, okay, thank you.
No problem.
I just wanted to acknowledge you that you did sign up for this, but we'll,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. All right, we have no other comments from the public, so 3.2, hurricane relief update. Ms. Joseph?
Okay, Mr. Scott, Jason, I can't pronounce his last name, and his team from our Fizbit Insurance, and he will explain in his exact role. He's gonna give you an update of the things that he's been doing. I just need to acknowledge the hurricane occurred on Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon. He was in Madison County, people.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate
And he
you.
has been here since, he and several people of his team.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Good afternoon, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to provide you with an update on recovery efforts and the status of where we're at each campus, reopening schools, the remainder of the schools on Thursday. First, I just can't say enough about the quality of the team that you have in place and the Herculean efforts they've been undertaking over the past, 5 days now? I'm starting to lose track. It's been really great to work with Miss Joseph and her team. Over the past several days, we've worked to first come in, quickly assess and identify damages at all of the campus, determine the scope of remediation, temporary repairs, and stabilization required to prepare the buildings for occupancy. As everybody knows, we kind of came in, assessed things, worked with the team. We all felt comfortable that we could have the majority of campuses in a position to reopen by next Monday. However, the Department of Education mandated that we do everything humanly possible to have those schools open by Tuesday and Thursday. So we quickly worked to identify the resources that were needed to make that happen. Because the buildings didn't have power, stabilization was required in all facilities, which when you have a large building without power for an extended period of time, and it's as hot and as humid as it is outside right now, if we don't stabilize the indoor climate and environment, you'll start to have secondary damage from high moisture levels. So we were in a couple buildings 3 days after the storm, and ceiling tiles were starting to sag because the humidity was so high, it causes everything to get wet. So if that's not addressed very quickly, then drywall will start to be wet, flooring and mold can start to grow and spread, and then we lose buildings, and we're looking at an extended time frame for opening buildings like that. So we held a conference call the day after the storm, after we kind of got initial handle on what needed to be done with 5 of the largest remediation contractors in the country. And Action Restoration is the contractor that's here working in the schools now. They were the only contractor that had resources in Madison and was able to start work immediately the day after the storm. So over the past 5 days, we've had about up to 200 people in all buildings at all campuses, which comprise over 490,000 square foot of space. And we're now in a position, as you all are aware, Greenville and Lee open for the most part today, with the exception of the 200 wing in Lee. We're in a position where the remainder of campuses are prepared to open on Thursday. Just a quick update on where we're at, and this is some new updates for you and your team as well, Ms. Joseph. We began demo in the 200 wing of Lee today, which is the
Can
wing.
you explain what demo means?
Yes, ma'am. So when we perform remediation or stabilization, there's 2 types of efforts that are required. Stabilization was required in all buildings and rooms where there was no power, but we didn't have water or water intrusion or damage to building materials. That's 90% of the rooms throughout all buildings. When there was water intrusion, remediation is required. So if carpet and ceiling tiles are wet, we extract water from the carpet. remove and replace the ceiling tiles, and then do a temporary repair to the carpet in order to make the room safe for occupancy. So what we have in, the majority of the remediation includes what I just described. Sometimes, if there's drywall demo required, that takes us to the next kind of level of remediation that's required, which requires drywall to be removed. We set up drying equipment, dry out the facility. After that's done, an industrial hygienist, which is a state licensed scientist, comes in and takes air quality samples. They perform what's called post-remediation verification. Those are sent to a lab to verify that the building is safe to occupy and there's no, mold growing and things like that. The building is safe for students. So the 200 wing at Lee is an example of where we had water intrusion and most of the walls were wet. So that requires the next level of remediation demo. They'll have that demo done. They're working throughout the night tonight. They're going to have the demo done in the morning, after which dry out will go on for about 1 to 2 days, and we'll be ready for PRV. The program, backing up just a little bit, the name of the program that we manage is the Emergency Advantage Program. That's available through your insurance provider, which is FSBIT, the Florida School Board Insurance Trust. That's a unique program in which insurance provides our team as a resource to come in and assist in overseeing, managing, and directly paying for repairs when you have an insurance claim. One of the benefits, in addition to being able to bring in the resources and manage and assist as an extension of your team to coordinate repairs, we then pay all the contractors directly through insurance. And the only cost that the district needs to pay then is an invoice for their deductible. So if the cost to repair a building is, $1.2 million, then the only cost that the district is responsible for would be a $50,000 deductible invoice for that building. So that's one of the benefits of the program that your insurance provider has, because it preserves your financial resources to use towards other, critical response and repair activities. And just, rough numbers of where we're at right now for the remediation and stabilization that was performed, we're looking at anywhere from $4 to $6 million for the work that was performed over the past, is it 5 days? And again, these are just real rough numbers initially. Is it 5 days? I can't even. It was
Somewhere.
6
days?
6.
If your insurance didn't have this program and you operated under a traditional insurance policy, the district would pay the remediation vendors, and then insurance would cut you an initial check based on estimates. After all the invoices are provided, they would provide
You
reimbursement.
know, wipe that out of fund balance. They would wipe it out
Okay, you
completely.
need to know there's deductibles per building.
Per building, yes,
Per
ma'am.
building.
Yes, ma'am.
It's 13 buildings at Madison County Central School.
That's correct. So we're working with Rose and team. We'll identify the total value of those deductibles. And then also Tracy Doyle with Synergy Disaster Recovery met with Rose, and they're one of the top FEMA consultants in the country. And we're working closely with their team to provide them with the information and documentation that they need to quickly facilitate reimbursement from FEMA of the deductibles that you'll be incurring. So anyway, getting back to the buildings, the 200 demo in the 200 wing of Lee has started, expected to be done tonight. Long story short, any building that I'm going to talk about where we're doing demo and need to do PRV, the estimated time frame for those buildings to be ready for occupancy and use is next Monday. Other than that, Lee is fully operational now. At the high school, at Madison High School, all remediation and stabilization is complete except for the library. We're awaiting the remediation protocol from the industrial hygiene team. I've requested that the industrial hygiene team perform their PRV, post-remediation verification, at the high school tonight so that we can obtain clearance by the end of the day tomorrow. At the high school, there was only a handful of rooms that remediation was required, so the rest of the facility is ready for occupancy now, and we have that letter. I just got my email to send to you. Madison Central is complete except for the 900 wing, which is where the Red Cross had a shelter. They vacated last night. They're 75% complete with the cleaning and remediation there. And we've requested that The post-remediation verification be performed in the 900 wing tomorrow. Again, there's only a handful of rooms within that wing that require the PRV. So 90% of the Madison Central campus will be ready for occupancy for sure by Thursday morning and then we're working on getting a handful of rooms that PRV is required cleared as well, with the exception of the gym. The gym is going to require some gym floor demo, which, not to get ahead of ourselves too much, but usually when you demo a portion of the gym floor, that needs to be replaced. So our priorities right now are getting the students back in the classrooms, after which we'll farther assess the extent of repairs required for the gym. Also, just to kind of, the way the process has been working, so Action Restoration is a remediation vendor. There's about 50 rooms throughout the district that have required ceiling tile demo and floor demo that I described earlier. In order to make the buildings ready for occupancy from a fire code perspective, we have to put ceiling tiles back in, and some type of flooring has to be installed because when you remove the carpet, there's sticky glue underneath and stuff like that. So there's another vendor that we identified, AGC, who's literally been working till 3, 4 in the morning, following Action Restoration and putting new ceiling tiles in where ceiling tiles were demoed, and then just ram boards down where carpet was removed in order to make the rooms able to be utilized. And then, so as we get students back in the classrooms, we're working with Tim and his team to identify the type of carpet, the appropriate carpet spec that needs to be reinstalled, and determining the availability of that. Sometimes that carpet's available within 2 or 3 weeks, depending on the spec. It might be a month till it's here. And then as soon as that comes, we'll have contractors install that over the weekend. So that's kind of how the process is working. The remediation crew goes through, removes any building materials that need to be removed, and then these guys work at night to put everything back that needs to put back, so that we can get the buildings ready to occupy. Pinetta, we got the remediation protocol for Pinetta yesterday. The majority of Pinetta is anticipated to be ready for occupancy Thursday as well. There's a handful of rooms that require PRV, and those rooms would then be ready on Monday. And then Ms. Joseph, we'll have a list for the 10 o'clock meeting tomorrow on which rooms those will be. I think that's the majority. It covers the majority of the items. I have just a couple miscellaneous, other miscellaneous buildings. First, the field house, the locker room in the coach's office at the high school. They're 70% done with cleaning that now. That's anticipated to be cleared tomorrow. In the rooms where they had football equipment, they fogged that just in case there was any contaminants on the pads and things like that. So that's all done. That'll be ready. We had an engineer. They're actually out there now assessing the press booth, concession stands, and some of those buildings that were damaged to determine what repairs are going to be required to make those buildings ready to occupy by as soon as possible. There may be some structural damage to those buildings. There was trees on a couple of them. So as we move through the week, we'll have a better update on the extent of damage and repairs that will be required at those fields. I think that's pretty much everything I had on my list. Ms. Joseph, and members of the group.
Bridge building, the building behind.
Yes, ma'am. So that's a good, so the bridge building on the high school campus,
Yes.
we were notified of yesterday, not aware that that building was there. And when it was assessed today, there was pretty severe water inundation in walls throughout that building. So that, they're working on performing the mediation there now. Let's see, where are we at with that? They will be done with the majority of remediation by tomorrow, and that falls into the scenario of being ready for occupancy next Monday.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Jason? I'm the representative on the board for FISBIT, and I've been impressed with them throughout the years, and now I'm really impressed. Thank you very much for what you're doing.
Absolutely. We appreciate the opportunity to be here and support. If there's anything additional we can do, please don't hesitate to reach out to me anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. Thigpen?
My name is Lami Thigpen. I'm the director over the road department here in Madison County for the local roads. When we got the storm, if you want me to give a brief presentation, we have twice daily meetings. I usually go once a day to DOC. Ms. Thompson's there. She asked if I would come and talk to you guys about the road conditions. I have a little bit of limited information because we have so many miles and limited staff. Once winds got to a certain point, we shut down all our crews. Once they got to a manageable level, we went back to work Wednesday afternoon. We concentrated initially on our main throughway roads to get people in and out of the county. We went then from there to our secondary paved roads and then to our little blacktops, and we're going to get to eventually the dirt roads. We have about approximately 700 miles of paved road and dirt road in the county that's our responsibility. You also have DOT roads that's their responsibility. We concentrated, like I say, initially on the main roads into the county, and then as we got reports that people were blocked, they couldn't get to town. We concentrated on there, particularly dead-end roads. I'm not aware right now, I'm not going to say they're not, but I'm not aware of anybody that can't get to town. But we still have some problematic areas. We got trees across the road. We've got some areas that there's trees across the road, but maybe a tunnel cut where you can get a pick up a car through, maybe not a school bus. The roads that we reported as being clear, we cleared a path to go around the power lines and trees and that sort of thing that I can drive a pickup through. So we want you to be aware, if I can drive a pickup through it, you may not be able to drive a school bus down it. I talked to Mr. Killingsworth earlier. He had 2 names from DOT. I know both of those people. They're real good people to report to for road areas that need to be addressed. They can report to us. I asked him if he would report to our office at 973-2156 and let us know if there's problematic areas that you can't get a school bus in, then we'll try to take priority with that as well. We're also trying to coordinate with Tri-County as they've got problematic areas they can't get their bucket trucks into, then we'll try to get them where you can get the power back on. So once we get people where they can get in and out of their homes, we get power back on, we get school buses going. I thought myself it would get worse Thursday when you open up all the schools, but Mr. Killingsworth told me today that you guys have had your bus drivers going around their routes, and he gave me a list. I took a picture on my phone of problematic areas that they thought they would have an issue with. So we'll try to work on those. We did, the county offices were closed from just before the storm. They'll actually open up tomorrow. But we've had all our heavy equipment running through the weekend every day during daylight hours. Today we opened up with full staff, so I have a few people I can get to go out into the county to report back to me the roads that we have that are problematic areas. Like I said, we got 700 miles of roads. Obviously, we haven't cleared all those roads. We've got a lot of other agencies from outside county forces that have come in and helped us. And that has been a huge supplement to us with limited people and limited resources.
Right. That's right.
We're doing what we can. We will do what we can. And if you guys have any questions for me, I'll try my best to answer them.
Does anyone have a question for Mr. Thigpen?
No, I would just like to say thank you so much for coming
sure.
and sharing that. I've been hearing this every day, but I think it's good for the whole board and the
Sure.
superintendent to hear that.
Thank you
you,
very
sir.
much. We appreciate you coming
Oh,
tonight.
no problem.
Thank you.
Thank you for your attention.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right, Ms. Johnson.
I want Mr. Ginn to give another update. Mr. Ginn has been here as soon as he could get out of his driveway. He's been here, he's been on the ground, he's been coordinating all the volunteers that we've had in there. But I just give a brief report if you have any questions from him.
Sure. Mr. Ginn?
While he's getting up there, I just want to say, Mr. Ginn has worked 20 to 22 hours a day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
He has put in much time trying to get the school going.
And
He probably
we
needs a nap.
appreciate him.
Good afternoon, board.
Good afternoon.
It's been a trying time this last few days. Been working with the district. I appreciate all the help the district has given me and my team. We've all been very dedicated to what we've been doing and trying to get our kids back in these schools. I'm gonna start at Pinetta We started out there on Friday. I just want to give a little kudos out. Bay County come over here, they sent a team of 20 guys over here with tractors, trucks, and chainsaws, and all kind of equipment, just to help clear the debris off of our schools to where we can open them up and these kids can get in the buildings. So I just want to give them a little pat on the back there, because they were very helpful in orchestrating all that stuff. I know we've got a football game coming up. We've got bleacher inspectors coming in. We've got remediation teams that's going to help us get that scoreboard out and make it as safe as we can. That big sign that was behind the
Visitor side.
visitors
On the
over there,
visitor side.
it was over on top of the bleachers. But we got it off of there, so that's why I'm having those bleachers inspected. We learned today, the fire alarm in Pinetta is gone. It filled it up with water. So the fire alarm's not gonna be operational. But, Mr. Haskell is gonna put SROs there. We're gonna walk fire watch until we can get that fire alarm. As long as we got kids in the building, and we're just gonna walk fire watch up and down the hallways, make sure our kids are safe. We had, Pinetta, we should have water samples back. You know, we're on wells out there, we're not on city water. Should have water samples back there in the morning. I talked to the water operator out there today. He said that everything looked good. He had good chlorine samples throughout school. He felt like there was not going to be any problem with us using water in the school. We just been fielding all kind of calls. We had busted water lines at Greenville Underground today. We had, just getting Jason and his crew in and out of these buildings as they needed to get out, getting air conditioners running, lights. Everybody's been busy trying to get our schools back in shape. But I appreciate y'all for supporting us and what we're doing. If y'all got any questions, I'll be glad to answer you.
Any questions for Mr. Ginn?
I don't have no questions, but I know it's a trying time, especially, trying to get all them trees and limbs and
Yes.
signs and everything. I think it was Sunday. I don't even know what day it is now, but I think it was Sunday. I seen some of them out there getting stuff on Sunday.
Yes.
So y'all been working out. We
We
appreciate
had a
it.
Sunday in here.
Yeah, we've had a lot of help throughout here from everybody.
So thank you for all you've done.
Yes.
Thank you very
And
much.
I'd like to thank you for not only this time, but all the dedication that you put into this job. And I know you do, and we appreciate you.
Thank you very
Thank,
much.
you're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh,
All
I
right.
want to give y'all one thing. Jason, the storm was on the way. I was in the middle of that eye. The eye was in the middle of all over my house. I walked outside, my phone rang. It was Jason.
Yep.
Yep.
He called me, and I was standing in the middle of the storm. He said, I'm on the way too.
Okay.
That's dedication
They
too.
were here in a couple hours after the storm.
Yes.
As soon as we
And
could
what
get,
did you do? You just took on off and,
he couldn't get out.
Couldn't get out. Trees all over my road. I still ain't got power.
okay.
Oh,
We live on the road. We were.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ginn.
See y'all. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Williams, you want to give a brief account of the shelter? Mr. Williams were in charge of the shelter. We had a regular shelter and a special needs shelter and an animal shelter.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My job was to make sure that the shelter was open and ready to accept those visitors that needed to get out of their homes during the storm. We opened up on Tuesday night, spent a couple nights over there with them. Then Friday morning, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Red Cross came in and took over. I think at one point we had pretty close to 200 people in the shelter. As of today, there was only one family still left in the shelter that's at New Testament now, being manned by Red Cross. So,
But we don't have any in the schools, right?
no tenants in the school.
Those are
at this
closed,
time.
school shelters are closed.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any
Any
questions?
questions for Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Roy.
Thank you.
Thanks for everything you do. We appreciate
That's
you.
a tough job.
Well, you know,
Okay, it took a village and,
exactly.
Mr. Haskell is over there, Major Haskell is over there, and his team played a very important role. Anything, any questions of him? You want to say anything?
I'd like to just say how much I appreciate what you do and all of the, I've said it before and I'll say it again, and we don't know what we do without all of you. Thank you so much.
You a major dog.
Ma'am?
You a major.
Well,
It's been a long time.
I wasn't gonna leave, they had to
Look
do
at
something with me.
you are a major. I remember when you first came on.
35 years ago.
Exactly.
35 years ago, wow.
I would say the sheriff had the SROs working shifts at the shelter so that we had
Yep.
2 SROs each shift.
Would you mind saying that into the microphone, please?
Let me officially introduce her.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, because
I'm
I've
not
had
gonna
people tell me
forget
they
you.
can't hear from home.
Okay, and Ms. Hill, she's gonna tell us about her part in the Recovery Act, but she's
Okay.
also, we opened school today, and so she's gonna tell us about that, how many students we had,
Okay.
basically which schools were open and how many students were there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is that anything else, what else you need to tell?
Okay. Well, first of all, let me say, I had the opportunity to work at the shelter quite a few hours, and we were very blessed to have the SROs working. We had 2 per shift working with us there the whole time. And I tell you, until you work those shelters and you know, people are coming in scared to death, you know, not sure what's going to happen, it's a real eye-opener. It makes you appreciate, you know, what we have. And so, anyway, we did work the shelter. We turned it over to Red Cross on Thursday evening. And so, but our district staff worked it for the first few days and nights. And then, like I said, we turned it over and started focusing on getting the schools ready to reopen. We just couldn't continue to work the shelter and focus on getting schools back open again. We've worked tirelessly. We've met twice a day since, I think, Friday. We had the Department of Education come over to meet with us, to go through some processes and things that we needed to take care of. And so I know that as a district in the past, we've not opened one school without opening another, but it was the department's urging that we go ahead and open whatever schools we could. And so today we opened Lee Elementary and Greenville Elementary. Lee had 74 students who came, and I think all but maybe 3 staff members. At Greenville, we had 44 students, and I think they had about half of their staff. We also helped to supply some staff from, you know, district coaches and stuff to help them out so that they could get the schools open. We're looking at opening the rest of the schools on Thursday. We are waiting on the certificates of occupancy from Jason and his crew saying that it is safe to open the schools. And that is something that Ms. Joseph has pushed for from the very beginning, is that she would not open the schools until we could document they were safe. And so we got the letters for Greenville and Lee so that we could open them up, and we're now waiting on the letters for the high school, the central school, and Pinetta. Curriculum-wise, we're doing the best we can this week because we are short-staffed and because we have, you know, at Greenville, 44 out of about 100 students were there today. We have combined grade levels. At Lee, we had combined I think a few combined grade levels, not a whole lot. But, you know, less than half of the students in the classes are there. You know, we realize their families don't have, you know, power or water or whatever, but for the ones who could come, we opened the school. And we made sure that we notified all parents that school, you know, the absences will not count against the students.
Okay.
Because we know some of them don't have power and some of them have even left town, you know, to get to safety. And so I've been working with getting the paperwork submitted so that we can use last year's FTE counts for October. And what that will do is any kids that we don't capture because they had to leave town or they don't have anywhere to live or whatever, it won't penalize us for that. If they were with us last year, we will get to count them. And so I'm going to submit that paperwork so that we can do that. And hopefully that'll help us not miss out on any FTE because of the storm. Any questions?
I'm glad you were able to do that. They'll be very helpful.
Well, and honestly, I didn't even know I could do that.
No,
But
I
Bay
didn't
County was able to share with us that is a possibility.
So how long do these children have that those absences won't count?
I know until the end of this week,
Okay.
and I think we kind of need to look at it on an individual basis.
Yes.
If a family is, you know, displaced or, you know, they still continue into next week without power, Ms. Joseph said, we are going to.
We're going to use grace and compassion.
Yep. And so we will not let that count against them. You know, now this got to stay within reason, but
Exactly.
we will definitely work with each family individually.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Hill?
I seen at Lee today, the Second Harvest truck was there.
Yes, sir. They're using the library at Lee. The county qualified for a grant through McPhee. And so they're using the library there just as a storage facility. And there's, I think 3 or 4 individuals that, once school's out, they start distributing, you know, out in the community.
The reason I was asking, I mean, our lunch program is still going on.
Oh, yes. We, Miss Iris was working hours and hours while, you know, the schools weren't in over the weekend, trying to, you know, get food, as much food as she could, making sure that what we had was good. She had already started preparing before we even got out, moving stuff to the central freezer, the one that has the generator. And so, you know, we were able to maintain most of our supply. Now, we did not cook lunches today, but we provided lunches. And so I think that's probably going to be the case for a few days here until her trucks can come in. So she stopped her trucks so that, you know, we didn't get stuff here and then lose it. And so Miss Iris has been on top of that. She knows what she's doing there. But we're feeding them breakfast, lunch. Some of the schools don't have water from the water fountains that's drinkable. And so we've tried to get bottled water. Some of them came in cartons. And so we're working around that to make sure the students have water to drink too.
And from my experience, they like the bag lunches, sandwiches.
Well,
They've always
first of all,
been
it's
popular.
different.
Yeah,
you know,
something different. They enjoy
and
it.
So, but we also want to get them back on a very
Yeah.
nutritious breakfast and lunch because, you know, a lot of them are missing that at home right now.
That's right.
They're like I am. Don't have much to cook. So
Come to Pinetta Fire Department.
All
We're
right.
serving daily.
all right. And I just want to say, this is a kind of a public forum. This county has truly come together, supported each other, volunteered to help each other, and that has been amazing to see how much people have done for others. And you hate to experience something like this, but it sure does draw people together.
Thank you, Mrs. Hill.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, I would like to say I do have a wonderful team to work with. I can call them all time of night, and that's what I was doing, all time of morning. Time you get off a 12-hour shift, you go home and sleep an hour, and I'm calling, and yes, I'm sleepy too, let's go. And they were doing that. We were functioning off 30 minutes after the hurricane, I was functioning off 30 minutes of sleep. But when it has to be done, you do what you got to do. What I've shared with you the letter that I sent out, all called to all our personnel. One thing that was not reiterated that's on this letter, we understand several people do not have their lights on, and it's not necessarily lights, some other situations. We are not penalizing any of our staff for not showing up this week. Okay. And I've also been in communication with the union personnel, and so they are aware of this. What we're going to do, we'll probably find some day to switch off for them. Now, they're only contracted to work so many days. They'll be obligated to do that, but they will have that opportunity to work those additional, switch off a day and work someplace else.
Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes,
Will they,
ma'am.
regarding last week, will they be penalized for not coming in on Wednesday, or?
We're not
in other
gonna, we
words-
don't penalize, we don't do things like that.
No, I didn't think so. I didn't think so, no. I'm just checking.
Specifically, when we get down to specific details, I'll let you know how
Yeah.
many days that's going to be forgiven by the government, by DOE.
Okay.
And then the others we'll probably
Yeah.
trade off.
Well, we have many, many dedicated employees. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
I'm sure most of them are.
Okay.
And thank you, Ms. Joseph, for all you've
Okay.
done.
Mr. Goyette and Ms. Raynick, they've been involved, but I'll let them talk a little later on about that. And as well as Ms. Doyle.
Did
She'll
she-
talk later on
Like-
because we've got her on the agenda.
Okay, later on. Okay, very good. All right, so that was, all right.
One other thing, this is very important. Okay, Ms. Hill told you I stressed this, and Ms. Dorfman said, before we let any kids back into school, we got a clearance letter from the insurance company.
Okay.
This is post-remediation verification letter. But that's why, these are only two schools that would give me a letter for today. That's why, those were the only schools that were open.
Well, that's what
And so
Mr.
I'm giving you a copy of this, and we're keeping this because we know our society, and we have this on hand.
And, well, Mr. Jason alluded to that fact.
Yes.
In other words, we won't occupy the schools until they're ready to be
Well,
occupied.
I've got it in writing.
And you have it in writing.
Okay, people tell you things, but I've got it in
You
writing.
got it in writing, okay. Sounds good. All right, anything else?
That's it about the storm.
Okay, number 4, consent agenda items, 4.1 minutes, 4.2 Madison County High School supplement update, 4.3 Madison County Central School updated sports schedules, 4.4 fundraisers, 4.5 Perkins letter of commitment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move we approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any questions? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. All right, items for individual consideration. 5.1A, emergency procurement agreement. Ms. Joseph?
Okay, I'm gonna let Ms. Rainick take care of that, and she will be presenting and with Ms. Tracy Doyle.
Excuse me.
Good evening. As part of our insurance remediation for getting the school started again, it's very important that we focus on emergency operations and preparations that we are going to have to use to claim any reimbursement from FEMA and from the insurance companies. So and Tracy, please correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Tracy Doyle from Synergy is the provider that Jason referred to earlier that is going to be representing us at this point in time with an emergency procurement if the board so approves. And what she is going to be doing is trying to assist us in collecting all the documentation that we need in order to claim the reimbursements that we need back from FEMA and from the insurance company. The insurance company is saying right now that they should have something to us later this week that would give us a rough estimate of where we are on deductibles and where the damages are, but it's going to be an open field for a little while. So I'll let Ms. Tracy Doyle from Synergy come up and talk with you about what her company does, and it'll give you a better idea of what we need to start working toward.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Tracy Doyle. As she just mentioned, we are a disaster recovery company, Synergy Disaster Recovery. We work all over the nation. I've worked with several school boards. I have worked in conjunction with Jason's company in Hurricane Ian with Charlotte County Schools and DeSoto County Schools down in South Florida. And we've been working with them to get their, as far as our association with Jason, we're working to get their deductibles back from the disaster. And then all expenses that the school district had that were related to the storm, we are working on getting them reimbursed through FEMA on those expenses. So there are things that are covered by insurance and things that are covered by FEMA, and they're not always the same thing. So I've been working, attending every meeting of the school board and just making sure that as expenses are incurred, that they're being tracked and documented, and that documentation will come to me so that the dollar value associated with that can be captured. So there, things like your staff's overtime, any expense basically that you would have incurred had it not been for the disaster, you know what I mean? So anything that's an extra expense to the school board, we want to be sure that those are evaluated and the correct cost is associated with it and requested from FEMA. I do have a really good working relationship with the Florida Division of Emergency Management. I did call Kevin Guthrie on your behalf. The fiscally constrained counties have been polled differently, and they have been offered an opportunity to get expedited projects as it relates to the disaster. So I want to get your project together as quickly as I can for your insurance deductible so that we can get it in and hopefully get at least a 50%. I don't want to call it an advancement, but an expedited payment on that. And I think that funding will go a long way towards other things that you need to fund related to the disaster. So that's my goal, is to get that project in first. Some of the other documentation, I'm not going to lie to you, does take a good bit of time to put together. So typically supplies that are utilized out of your stock, that weren't intended to. So if you bought, I'm just going to use an example, if you bought paper towels and they were supposed to last this whole school year, and based off of the disaster now, that what was going to last 9 months is only going to last 3 months because there was all this extra need all of a sudden, that difference of what it should have made it to is a reimbursable expense. Also, I know we've had a lot of donated resources where people have donated time, effort, or their time, supplies, food, anything like that. We want to track it because there's a dollar value associated with those too that work to your advantage. So it's those types of things. Do y'all have questions about FEMA reimbursement? It's a big subject. I'm not gonna,
Would you explain the fee for this?
I can. Our fees are hourly based off of position requirements for the positions. We are also supporting Taylor County Schools with their recovery from this disaster. So one of the advantages, I think, is that since we're going to do 2 school districts, we're going to use 1 team. So we will be doing the exact same thing for Taylor County with Jason's group. He has a separate team over there, not the same team that's working for y'all. But so we should be able to split everything pretty much down the middle, to be honest, unless one school district identifies an excessive amount of difference, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So right now, Jason will run his team. here and there, and any FEMA advisement that's needed is only on an hourly basis when we are working for you. So you don't pay us unless we're actually on your project. So we'll split between the two districts.
Ms. Rainey, did you finally get a dollar amount to put in here? Because what I put in here is not a dollar amount.
Yes, we couldn't get a dollar amount earlier, but we do have a dollar amount. We don't think it's going to exceed or get close to that dollar amount. The dollar amount would be about $75,000 for the duration of this. This is an emergency procurement.
It is.
We are going to have to go for a full procurement in the next 60 days in order to stay in place to get our FEMA reimbursements after we get to the filing point. So we will still have another procurement process for this, but right now this is an emergency procurement that we're allowed to do in this situation.
What we do know is if you don't track and document your expenses, you will not get them back. FEMA is a very document-driven organization. They expect everything to be documented in a certain way. So one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is everything that you've expended thus far, going back and making justifications for those. It's a lot easier to remember the justifications and create that documentation today. And then I did encourage when Ms. Rose and I spoke right from the beginning, that we put this procurement out as quickly as possible. There are federal procurement guidelines. You're allowed to use emergency procurements for a period of time. And as soon as you are able to put out a standard procurement, I would recommend that you do that, when your procurement offices are back up and at full capacity. If you choose me as your long-term consultant, that's great. If you don't choose me, I do encourage you to have a consultant. FEMA gets pretty cumbersome. I think that's a very nice word.
Thank you, Mrs. Dole. You sound very knowledgeable about what you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you.
I would sure love to have you. And you've explained well.
Thank you.
Was this for 90 days,
That procurement's good for 90 days. If an exigent circumstance arises and we need to extend the emergency procurement, we can. But typically FEMA will accept a 90-day emergency procurement, giving you time to put it out, advertise it, tabulate it, score it, and award it, because procurements take a while. We have also been requested by several school districts in Florida to piggyback on Charlotte's County's procurement, which I didn't realize how often school districts do piggybacks, but apparently it's pretty common. Right, when they asked us to do that, as opposed to just signing a contract with them, I asked for it to be reviewed by the Florida Division of Emergency Management in addition to a federal procurement and acquisition team. Those are free reviews, but that review's not back yet. So if that review gets back in time and that piggyback is allowed between Okaloosa and Charlotte, I will give you that information, and then you can avoid the cost of procurement. If not, I feel like it's in your best interest to do all the legalities. I don't want to do any shortcuts that could hurt you later.
Thank you.
but you're connected with Fisbit, though, or they've used your services, let's say?
No, we're a separate contract with Fisbit, completely separate. We don't, we're not affiliated with them in any way. We've just worked with them in the past.
You work with them?
We have worked with them in the past, meaning we have been the FEMA consultant on jobs where they have been the insurance. That's the only
So
association.
you're very familiar with each other.
We're very familiar with each other. The Fisbit program is very unique, so when
Yes.
it gets presented forward to FEMA, it usually has to be accompanied by a white paper explaining Fisbit, because it's not typical insurance.
No.
Because typically, you lay out all the money and then you reconcile all that with your insurance company. Fisbit takes on all the expenses and all you're paying is your deductible.
Yes.
So there's always an explanation of that when it gets to the Consolidated Resource Center for FEMA. They say, what is this about? And we go through the whole explanation each time. So,
Any questions?
I don't have any, and thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ms.
Absolutely.
Joseph, do you have anything to say about it?
I don't have anything to say about her. I appreciate
No,
what you've
yeah.
done, but I'd like the board to know, it's not a good thing, but we're fortunate that Ms. Rainick have been through some of this before when she's experienced this in Gadsden
Yes.
County. Was that Michael? And so she is encouraging us to do this. She can't stress how important
She-
this is
right.
to us.
Okay.
So she's got a great cheerleader.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I will leave now in case y'all want to have discussion, but thank you. I have enjoyed working with your team. They have all been honestly wonderful to work with, like, very responsive, and I owe you a process. I'm working on it tonight.
We appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Meet with her. Do we have a meeting?
Okay.
Okay.
May I speak? Yes, sir. We're urging the board to review the emergency procurement for Synergy Incorporated for the next 90 days based on the adjustment that I talked to Mr. Reeves about before the board meeting.
So if you want to approve it, what you do is approve it, but paragraph 4 is the not to exceed paragraph, and you would approve that with changing the underlined portion to be $75,000.
So you've read it, Mr. Attorney?
I have, it looks
Thank
fine.
you.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
So
Reeves.
we need to approve that tonight, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Do we have a motion to approve the emergency procurement agreement?
I move to.
Madam
Will-
Chair, I move to accept the emergency procurement agreement, amending paragraph 4 to not exceed $75,000.
We have a motion by Ms. Knight, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carroll. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. (5.1B) AFR.
That's our annual finance report, and Mr. Michael Benson, who's one of our subcontractors, is going to do his magic. That's that big stack of paper that Ms. Bishop gave you.
It's usually much better at the beginning of the meeting because by now you're like, I don't want to hear any of this. But, I was gonna earlier say that you do have, I've watched some of your staff and I've been around for a while, and you really do have some good staff, but then Ms. Hill, she stole the thunder, and then Ms. Joseph stole it. But I figured I'd say it again anyway, so in case you haven't heard that enough, you've got some really good hard workers that seem to really care about
Yeah, we know
about the
that.
district. Yes, ma'am. And
Hey, we know that.
they say that, hey, the government or the state at least, take as much time as you need as long as you have it done today. So that's kind of, I think, what they've been going through. So, much of what that I have to talk about here is a formality. It's to comply with governmental accounting standards boards, with regulatory guidance, compliance with, well, I guess I should say compliance with regulatory agencies. It's a lot of information. I'm going to talk about the highlights and be as brief as possible. Any questions that you have about the numbers that are in here, though, just feel free to ask me. If it's a little more detailed, me and Rose may have to work together. But I will talk about the general fund, which is what we want to know, kind of hit the highlights there, and some of the other funds briefly, and a little bit about what makes up the note disclosures in the AFR. But as always, if you have questions, just feel free to ask or ask me later, however you want to do it. The first thing, let me see, did I touch everything? There are 3 items. I know they're listed as one here. It's fine, I think, to all be approved together. I think so. If there is a difference, you can break them out.
Okay, which one are we starting with?
Okay, we're
first?
going to start with the ESC 348. It's the top. It says the report of financial data to the Commissioner of Education.
Okay.
So such good stuff. They had to have it on legal paper. The this document is supplemental, I guess you could say, to the annual financial report, and it really just provides revenue and expenditure information to the Department of Education about your activities for the year. Whereas the AFR may go into a little more detail on some of the stuff. The first page, the very first page after the index is your general fund, and it lists all the revenues by object code, and by the Department of Education guides object code, red book they call it, and tells you how the funds that you received and breaks them down into federal, state, and local and other types of revenue. The bulk of your general fund revenue is the FEFP, Florida Education Finance Program, and then your class size revenue as well. Of course, the FEFP is made up of a mixture of state funds and your local tax revenue, your required local effort and your discretionary that you approved earlier. That goes into your general fund. The required local effort is determined by the state, and the discretionary local effort, the .748, that's just a discretionary that every district can levy. Everyone does levy it. It is something that is optional for districts to do, but I've never seen anyone not actually levy that. And then every district gets a different mixture of state and local funds because every district is different in how their local, their millage per capita is, some county, Monroe County they have to get capped because I think 90% of their counties from local revenue. But here, there's usually in these counties, there's more about 50-40 start split, and then about 10% is federal supplements as well. So normally that's about the federal amount. So, like I said, the biggest parts on here are your FEFP, your class size reduction, and then down your local district school taxes. They're broken out separately. Some of your miscellaneous collections, and then your total revenues at the bottom is just under 20.5 million. And then on the next page is a breakdown of expenditures by function and by object class. So basically what you're looking at, you're going to see this structure over and over down the document, is your functions are the purpose of the expenditure. So is it for instruction? Is it for school administration? Is it for student transportation? And then your object classes determine what the good or service is you're actually buying. So in other words, if you have personnel that drive your buses, they're going to be in a salary and benefit object code, and they're going to be in the student transportation function. And if only it was all that simple, but that's the idea there. So your total expenditures, you can see here that the revenue expenditure comparison shows at this point a deficit of $710,000, but that is before you turn the page to the third page of the general fund, and this shows other financing sources balanced against other financing uses. So your capital project funds, they transfer in a lot of money to the general fund, and those are for your charter school reimbursements. You receive the money in your capital outlay fund, but you have to pay it to the charter schools out of your general fund, so therefore you have to transfer it over. That's about 200 and something thousand of that. The rest of that is the recapturing of insurance premiums and some of your maintenance salaries and things that are in the general fund. Your local capital dollars, the 1.5 millage, can reimburse those. So that's what those transfers consist of. So when you factor those in to offset that $710,000 initial deficiency, you actually have an increase in fund balance for the year of about $50,000. And then those columns right below that net change in fund balance show you what you began with last year, and shows you your total, and the adjustment was just an audit adjustment. It moved something between funds, and then it shows you the breakup of your current fund balance. So your current general fund balance has restricted funds, assigned, and unassigned fund balance. The restricted, I'm not going to go through this like everyone, I'm just letting y'all know right now. So the non-spendable would normally be like inventory or something that you had as an asset, but you couldn't spend, and it's not in a very liquid state. Your restricted fund balance for things that are restricted typically by third parties, you can only spend it like this. If you got safe schools funds, that's all you can spend it on. Your committed is something that if the board were to take official action by resolution, they could reserve funds that the district or no one could touch until another action by the board will release those funds. I've never even seen one of those in our smaller districts, but you can do it. Assigned fund balance and unassigned fund balance together make up unrestricted. Those are the amounts that are used to calculate the financial condition ratio of the district. That's the one you may have heard you have to be within above 3%. So if you were to take your unrestricted revenues and divide them by, your unrestricted fund balance and divide them by your total revenues, not to include any transfers in or any of that, but just your revenues that were on that first page, that will give you your financial condition ratio. And the district, while it went down slightly this year, it's mainly just because of a mixture of restricted, sometimes they fluctuate. I think you're still in the 15% range. It's a very I mean, that's a healthy fund balance. Trust me, I was, right before I got up there, I'm texting with another district that will remain nameless that does not have a 15% fund balance. And that may be the least of their problems. Anybody have any questions about the general fund?
No, sir.
Okay, so we got the food service fund. Most of the food service comes from reimbursements from Florida Department of Agriculture. It's federal fund reimbursement. You know, I think, I'm not sure here, are they all, it's all CEP, community eligibility provisions? Is it all free in Madison? Okay, so you have very good reimbursement rates. I think Ms. Iris did a little extra this year to get the breakfast reimbursement rate up, and that's significant. You do have from what I've seen, a pretty healthy food service fund balance.
We do.
If you look over on the next pages, the fund balance is $333,000. 146 of that is inventory, and the rest is restricted fund balance. Everything that's not in the general fund will show up as restricted. It's all, the general fund is the only place you'll have unrestricted funds. Okay, and then it gets a little more, I like to say smaller. It seems like everything gets smaller to see. So I'm not gonna discuss the federal unless you have questions. The federal and the ESSER funds right here. We can talk about it briefly on the AFR. But you have the same structure. You have your special revenue, other federal programs on page 6. This is the federal fund that you will have every year that has your entitlement grants in it. Back when things were normal before ESSER, school districts pretty much had the same structure, did the same things every year. And then ESSER came along and it's been, I don't want to say chaos, I mean, because it's been helpful to have all these extra funds, but it's caused a lot of extra work on district staff. But normally this is what you're dealing with, this fund. All revenues and expenditures are going to balance because it's reimbursement based. So whatever you spend, after you spend it, you claim file for reimbursement. So your revenues and expenditures will balance every year. So there's your expenditures on page 7. And then page 8 summarizes the revenue side of your different education stabilization funds, the revenues and expenditures because they match, and it shows you by fund how much you've spent, how much you received in reimbursement this year. So there was a significant amount. It was less than last year, $3.6 million in funding that the district does not normally get. So I will applaud from what I've seen around with Madison County because a lot of districts have a lot of staff on these funds and they're figuring out what to do with them. I think Madison's done a good job of taking non-recurring things like your HVAC and updating chillers and things like that, which is good because that's one-time kind of cost versus having to turn around and find either we're going to have to let employees go or find somewhere else to pay for them at. So, all right, and then debt service funds and capital project funds. I'll talk about them in the AFR unless you have any questions. There's some additional detailed information the DOE likes to know at the end of this document. Let's see. Okay, yeah, on page, somebody stapled us here, I don't know what page it is. It's one of the last few pages. Basically, it's going to give you a breakdown of some of the same stuff that's already in the AFR. It's going to show you your long-term liabilities, but it's also going to show you what they call categorical fundings that you get from the state, like we talked about state schools, mental health, those FDFP pass-throughs, BPK. It's going to say, this is what we carried forward from last year, this is what we received, this is what we spent, this is what we're carrying forward into next year. So those will all be part of that restricted fund balance that you saw up in the general fund. So
I think page 23 of this.
okay, did you find it?
Well, I had to undo the staple.
Okay. So any questions about the ESC 348?
I don't.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ms. Getty. You thought I was done, didn't you? I promise I was
No,
almost.
I didn't think that. I know it's more to it.
The very last page, this is useful information, is the schedule of expenditure of federal awards, and that shows, I almost forgot this, that would have been detrimental to the understanding of the federal funds you receive, but this will break it down by CFDA number and by kind of like how they're clustered together or what agency you received the funds from, and will show you exactly how much you received for federal funding this year. Okay, now I'm done with the ESC report. Okay, the 145 is the next document. The MD&A, as it's called, Management Discussion and Analysis, it's the first few pages. It talks about some of the highlights for the year. It will talk about the difference between government-wide financial statements and fund financial statements, both of which are in this document, and they'll be audited. Whereas the fund statements, I'll just give you the quick rundown, whereas the fund statements have a current financial resource measurement focus, meaning they're more concerned with current expenditures, proceeds versus disbursements. Your government-wide looks more like what you would see for a financial corporation, private corporation that was reporting long-term assets and long-term liabilities. So you have two different looks here, and then they have a reconciliation between the two. Your discussion and analysis will explain a lot of that. If you look over on staying in the MD&A on page 4, that shows you the statement of net position from the difference from last year to this year. The total net position only increased about $700,000. Most of the activity when it comes to these, your fund balance is going to roll through to this, and then you're going to have all this work related to your pensions liability, your other post-employment benefits liability, compensated absences, all these big things that come in here that really move these numbers around from year to year. So while I always say the fund statements are the most important for our more immediate concerns, we do like to get a look and see what are our long-term assets versus our long-term responsibilities. So that shows the change from year to year. If you look on that same page and that same chart there, you'll notice that long-term liabilities under these 2023 column was about 15 million, whereas last year it was about 8 million. This is the kind of swing that happens with pensions. And if you go down to deferred inflows of resources, you'll see the opposite. Last year, the deferred inflows were a lot higher, and the deferred inflows this year are a lot lower. So they've pretty much offset each other and given you that total net position. Next page is the activity for the year. Statement of activities. This is still a government-wide focus. So it shows you, you have program revenues, you have general revenues. Program revenues are those revenues that directly offset some of these expenditures that you have here. They're only for one purpose or another, whereas general revenues are more to use at the district's discretion. And then when you have that comparison to the expenditures, you'll see that change in net position of about $740,000 that we spoke about. There's a financial analysis of the district's funds. We've talked about a lot of that already. If you look, Exhibit B1 and B2 are more detailed information than what we just looked at in the discussion and analysis. That kind of gave the summary. This gets into a little more detail. And then on page, whatever exhibit, it's actually Exhibit C1. Looks like it got cut off. Here is your governmental funds. They're broken out into major funds, and then all the non-major funds are accumulated into one category there. Your major funds this year are general. That'll always be the case. The other federal programs, your entitlement grants, that's almost always the case. Federal Education Stabilization, that's your ESSER grants, that's gonna be the case. Your Special Act bonds, that's where you handle the debt service for your, quality construction school bonds or something like that, that you have, you're still paying on. I don't remember what they were originally for off the top of my head.
High school, yeah.
Okay. So those are nearing the end of being paid off. There's about 4 years left on them. And that money is sales tax distributions. About $217,000 every year is going into that fund to pay that debt service. Once those bonds are satisfied and paid off, those revenues will be in the general fund. So that's something to look forward to. Next page, capital outlay and debt service, 360, and non-voted capital improvement fund, 370. Those are your other major funds. The capital outlay and debt service is revenue that you receive every year from the state. I think it's from the motor vehicle license or mobile home license fees, and that gets distributed to the school boards. Those funds can be used for new construction. Most districts have been kind of accumulating these funds, and it's because for 20-something years, they were being used to pay these old SPE bonds that the district had. Here, I think they got satisfied about 3 years ago. So now, once they stopped, the state stopped withholding that money and paying the debt service, they started giving it to districts. They're kind of just not having done anything with them. But it is funds that will be available for new construction and a lot of fixed equipment and things like that, to fix security issues, safety issues, very similar to what you can use your local capital revenue for. The only difference is your capital outlay and debt service has to be on an approved survey from DOE. So when they do the survey, it has to be some recommendation on that survey. So your non-voted capital improvement, that's the 1.5 mils. I believe that fund balance stayed pretty steady from year to year. That's where you reimburse your general fund for a lot of allowable cost. And then you have reconciliations from, you have the reconciliation from the balance sheet to the statement of net position, the reconciliation from the statement of revenues and changes in fund balance to the statement of activities. A lot of exciting stuff. If you have time, you want to read it, just feel free to ask me about it. I may or may not know. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm being thorough. Then you have pretty much everything I'm trying to tell you in a lot better language back here in the notes to financial disclosures, starting in Exhibit D1. It will really explain a lot of this in detail. I would advise anyone to read it. I know most people probably don't. Sometimes I feel like I do these and I talk about it for a minute and then the auditors read it. Many of them read it over and over again, but then I don't know what happens after that. So, the only thing I will mention, unless you have any questions, are some of the main tables back here. Page 9 of the notes. That shows you of your cash balances, that's the amount that at June 30th that was currently invested in your SBA Prime, which is considered to be a cash and cash equivalent, but it does earn a much higher rate of interest. Over to page 11, that's your changes in capital assets for the year. That's why when you go from fund statements to government-wide, it just totally changes, because you basically, right here, you're adding in $42 million of net capital asset value. And then on the other side of that, page 24, there's your long-term liabilities. You're adding in about $15.3 million on the other side. Throw in some deferred outflows and inflows, and it just, it's can be an exercise in futility. For one thing, I don't understand still, I think I mentioned this in the past, but I like to repeat myself. I'm not really sure why we even have to report a long-term liability for pensions for the FRS, because your contributions, the employees' contribution, the deduction amount, they've all been sent to the state. The state's responsible for paying pensions. This is something that the Accounting Standards Board did a few years ago, where they wanted these sub-agencies to report the fiduciary net position, their portion of that total liability. And I don't know if maybe the understanding is that, well, if you were to, not offer the pension anymore, then you would no longer you would no longer be in business, you would no longer receive those revenues, so I don't really understand it, but it used to be a state liability, and then they wanted to spread it to the districts. That's why you see that big negative $9 million. That's the liability for the pensions. Okay, and the last thing, this will be real quick, is the ESC 139. That's the district summary budget. This will match exactly what was approved earlier tonight for the final budget hearing. It just gives you more detail and breakdown of those numbers. The first page is your millages that were approved earlier. And then the certified taxable value of property. The taxable value of county property just keeps going up and up and up. And it's a good thing, but they always kind of hold you back on how much of that you get. In other words, every time it goes up, the DOE's, they're lowering your millage rate a little bit to. Okay, so then you have the same breakdown as the 348 with your general fund, your food service. This is the official budget for the year, and the official budget has to be passed at the same, with the millage rates. They have to be adopted by resolution. This has to be sent to DOE to be approved. But once this is approved, budget revisions can be taking place immediately. So things are already underway. I've seen some, revisions, proposals that are in there. So each month, whenever you get any kind of financial update with new budget numbers, that would be by your approving that, you would be approving any budget revisions to the original budget. See if I have anything else on my notes. No, not really. Well, let me see. That's usually what happens when I talk. People leave. But
There is 18.34% for the total fund balance. The unassigned portion of that is only 5.58%. So that means that there are dollars set aside for like the rise in FRS, for the continuing rise of paying for the $15 raise that extended the liability for employment. So there are other things involved in that, but we're still at a very good point at 5.58. Where we're going to end up after this hurricane, we'll have to wait and see how that is. We're hopeful that we will be able to get reimbursed for a lot of our expenses. There still may be expenses that we have to put out, so it's a good thing that we are in fairly good shape on fund balance for this sector.
so it's my time. It's my opportunity to say yay. Rose is like
Thank you.
she has to say but.
Thank you.
No, she's definitely right. The contingencies are important because, and you'll hear some of the more seasoned people than myself in this job, because I haven't seen a lot of it, but talk about the days when the base student allocation would have decreased suddenly with the economics. Economy would have a downturn, FTE declines, those things can have a significant effect. So it's good to have that reserve there.
Thank you.
But yes, ma'am. So these three items, we feel like they're all
We'll put
going
them-
to approve, okay?
Okay, sounds good. Any questions? All right, do we have a,
I think as long as they're all approved, it will be fine.
yeah, okay.
I don't think there's a problem.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the annual financial report?
I move to approve the annual financial report.
We have a motion by Ms. Thompson, second.
A second.
Second by Ms. Knight. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we didn't fall asleep either.
Travel safe.
Sorry, I tried to make.
Travel safe.
Oh, thank you. And you have been in our prayers. As I drive over here, I'm reminded how fortunate we were in Columbia County.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, for sure. Okay. All right. 5.2, we said there would be no action on that. No, let's jump up to 5.
Did we get a motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. 5.1C.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Killsworth, like I told you, he's not here.
Yeah,
I wouldn't do it because he had to go out to Lee and let some of those workers in.
that's fine.
When they say they work at 2 and 3 o'clock at night, that's where they're going. And we pitch in for everybody. Mr. Ginn had to do his part.
Right.
Okay, I'm gonna be doing the personnel for him.
Okay, Ms. Joseph?
Tonight, we have one employee that's requesting a leave of absence from August the 3rd through October the 9th. And we have substitutes, and we have tutors for board approval.
And the volunteers.
And we have volunteers. And all of those volunteers have been duly screened.
All right, thank you, Ms. Joseph. Do we have a motion to approve the personnel changes?
I move to approve the personnel changes.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
I second.
Second by Ms. Thompson. Any discussion? Or
That was Ms. Knight.
Excuse me, Ms.
That's
Knight.
okay.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. All right, we're skipping over 5.2. 5.3, E-rate contract renewal. Mr. Goyette?
We updated the title for this one today. It got mislabeled. It's really E-rate purchasing. It's purchase authorization. If you remember back in March, I brought a network upgrade to you guys, and I said that was only half of it. This is the other half of it. So Friday before the hurricane, we got notification on Friday that our E-rate was approved. And so I need to get you guys' approval so we can go ahead and proceed with the purchase. So the total, so for this, the half that's going through E-rate, the total purchase is $292,035. E-rate has committed $232,417 for their funding. There was $15,812 that we applied for, but they have rejected, and we're appealing that because we believe it was incorrect. And our responsibility, if all of their funding is approved, is $43,805. That's 15% of the cost. So E-rate is a program through the Universal Service Commission that mainly pays for our internet. They pay for 90% of our internet bills. And then every 5 years, they give us a certain amount of money per student to spend on network upgrades. And we're responsible for 15% of what we spend. So the board's responsibility for this will definitely be $43,805. That's going to be paid out of ARP. It's already been budgeted into the ARP money, and with the possibility of the additional $15,000 depending on which way our appeal goes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goyette. Any questions for Mr. Goyette? All right, do we have a motion to approve the E-rate contract renewal?
I move to approve the E-rate contract renewal.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion?
Just one thing,
Go
Madam
ahead.
Chairman. So what they need to approve tonight is the expenditure of up to the 43,000 figure and the 15, plus the 15,000 figure.
Yeah, that's the district's responsibility. Yeah.
The total, that's the maximum it could be, and we
Yes.
hope it's just the 43,000.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. All those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. 5.4, IT contract with Scott Davis. Mr. Goyette?
Yep, this is a contract like we've done before to get some additional help with repairing things like security cameras, running cable lines, various little projects like that. We've got some hurricane-related stuff for him now to do, some repair work. So this is just the contract, same format that we've done the prior ones.
How long will that last?
This is through the end of this year. It's not gonna be a full-time person, it's gonna be an as-needed.
Okay.
Part-time, not to exceed 30 hours a week. It's not gonna be an every week,
So
full-time thing.
that's the end of this year, not fiscal year?
Correct, this year,
Okay.
December
December.
31st.
And ESSER will take care of that ESSER fund?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes, this is
Yes.
paid out of ESSER. And possibly some of it will come out of insurance or FEMA, depending on what he's doing.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Goyette. Any questions for Mr. Goyette? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the IT contract with Scott Davis?
I move to approve the IT contract with Scott Davis.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goya. 5.5, Pinetta Elementary School playground equipment purchase, Mrs. Joseph.
Okay, Pontiac has been doing fundraising through their PTO. This is their PTO funds to purchase some playground equipment. Any expenditures over $10,000 has to be approved by the board, and she's presented, I guess it's the same item. I've got 2 bids, and she wants to buy the one from Playmore for a cost, total cost, which she was good. She includes the installation for $11,877.80. And it will be paid for through their PTO funds.
Thank you, Mrs. Joseph. Do we have a motion to approve the Pinetta Elementary School playground equipment purchase?
I move to approve the Pinetta Elementary School playground equipment purchase.
We have a motion by Ms. Thompson, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Excuse me. Becky, 5-0. 5.6, Waypoint Charter School dissolvement. Ms. Joseph?
Okay, this is going to be a discussion. Okay, if a student is a resident of Madison County, it is our duty, it's our obligation, okay, to provide a free and appropriate education for students. Waypoint houses, this is a residential foster care facility. These kids are residents of Madison County. We approved their charter, and at this time, they feel that they do not want to carry on with it. And the process is that they write a letter to dissolve the charter, and someone has to provide an education, we have to provide an education. They serve grades 5 through 12 at that location. At present, they have approximately 30 kids. And we are in negotiations about the process. We will continue with the education and how we think we would better serve the kids if we remain let them remain at the facility and we provide instruction out there. Now, this letter is dated the 22nd, and they are asking to dissolve this charter immediately, because the hurricane came up and we had to stop on some of our negotiations. I'm asking, and is it legal, that we dissolve it effective the last day of this month, which is September 30th.
When you all did that original thing, what did it say? What provision did it provide? Did it provide a 30-day notice or just?
It's a little bit different because I was just reviewing the statute, thinking about this. The statute does require certain notices when the district is going to terminate, because that's normally the way it happens. With the charter school itself saying it wants to terminate, I don't know of anything that would require a certain amount of notice. But there has to be the charter school has a requirement to engage in a smooth transition of the students, make sure the students are properly cared for and all that. I think with their students as a residential placement facility, I don't know that we have any option to do anything but send teachers over there to.
Because those kids are eligible to come to the district schools, to the brick and mortar, but I think we can serve them better if they stay out there.
Okay, but so
We are working on the transition, we just haven't completed it yet.
So they're not at that level, because sometimes they're at a level 6 or a level 7 or whatever, so they're not at that level
All of
that
these
they are
kids,
not allowed off campus.
They're all allowed off campus. I think it's just better serve them if they remain on campus. They are
Okay,
allowed off
well, what I'm
campus.
asking, what level of this facility is on?
What
Do
kind
you
of,
understand what I'm talking about?
this is not a DJJ facility. And all of them are not ESC students. Some of them are regular students.
Well, how they got out there?
There's a foster care.
Because I wasn't on the board at that particular time. I don't know.
It's a foster care, yes, ma'am.
Foster care.
Yeah, it's a
Are we
foster care.
talking about staffing this
We
location?
have to
We have
staff.
to.
Okay, with also overnight staff?
No, no,
No,
no,
no,
no.
no.
We're only,
Education.
we're only taking over the education.
Okay, so
component.
they are gonna provide staff still for that facility?
We have to.
They're not closing the facility, they just are discontinuing providing.
The educational
education
services.
section. Yes.
We're going to be sending teachers over there to teach during the day, just like we have teachers in our schools during the day.
I understand, okay.
They're going to have people there at the dorms and the.
Okay, to
counselors.
staff. Okay.
So they already have teachers over there. Are those teachers willing to stay there?
We are negotiating that right now.
Okay.
So I think what you're saying, Madam Superintendent, the last business day of September is the 29th.
Yes.
And so the first day of October is October 2nd. So you
Yes.
want to terminate it as of September 29,
Yes.
so that we,
Give us time to get staff, to hire staff, and send them over there, and to make sure that we have the correct curriculum.
We
We'll
get
be able to
FTE
count
and all
these
that.
children, or we'll.
Yes, they are
FTE.
students.
Okay.
So we get FTE and all that.
Yeah.
If they're Madison County students, as of the first full week in October, they will
Let's
be included
terminate.
on our
It's not just
FTE.
about
now,
that. Okay.
the only
We
thing
want that
now,
money.
remember that FTE comes in, and
They
so
got
you're
teachers.
giving
They got
them a
teachers.
month of FTE.
Yeah.
Not
So we're
doing
gonna
it
get
that
their
way.
FTE.
Okay,
If
remind me from
excellent.
Mr. Reeves, because they are providing education for a couple of months, they will have to get a portion of that
They would
survey to
Be entitled to
FTE.
FTE through September 29.
Okay.
Which I'm not saying that's a reason not to do it, but just so y'all know.
But then we will be able to get that FTE off them, and we gotta have them by October.
That's right.
Okay. Any
So-
other questions?
So the action I think the board needs to take is to vote to terminate the charter for the Waypoint Charter Academy at their request, effective September 29, 2023.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Waypoint Charter School dissolvement effective September 29th, 23?
Madam Chair, I move that we dissolve the Waypoint Charter effective September 29th, 2023.
We have a motion by Ms. Hagan, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carroll. Any discussion?
And they use the term dissolve in their letter, but really it's termination. So
Termination,
it-
okay.
We should, our action should be to terminate the charter.
What,
We will be terminating the charter.
excuse me, what word did I use?
Dissolve, but
Okay.
it just needs to be terminated.
So do I need to take that motion back and use the word terminate?
Yeah.
Madam Chair, I move that we terminate the charter with the Waypoint School effective September 29, 2023.
Thank you, Ms. Hagan.
Now you got to take your.
And we have the
back
second.
and then
The second stand.
Second?
I'll second again.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. 5.7, contract with Sharon Fletcher for adult education.
Okay, that's our standard contract we use with Ms. Fletcher, and she is our adult education teacher, and that program is housed out at the One Stop Career Source Center, and she's doing a fantastic job with our program.
Yes, she does. Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Do we have a motion to approve the contract with Sharon Fletcher for adult education?
I move we approve the contract with Sharon Fletcher for the adult education.
We have a motion by Mr. Carroll, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hagan. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. 5.8, staff travel. Ms. Joseph?
I have been going so much, I didn't realize that the FAST conference is next week.
Yes.
Jeez. Okay, I've requested for me to attend the the Fall Superintendent's Conference in October next week. The FAST People is the Title I Conference, and we're requesting Federal Programs Conference. Rose Rainick and Travis Jones attend that. And then we had the Phase Conference, which is the next week in September, and Mr. Goyer usually attend that.
You sure, Madam Superintendent, you want to be away from us while the hurricane stuff is still being negotiated?
This is a approval to attend, but if I am needed on my job in Madison County, I'll be here. It does not say I will attend, but
Well, thank you, Ms. Joseph.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, ma'am.
Okay, she's available if needed. All right, do we have a motion to approve the staff travel?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the staff travel, all that was presented by the Superintendent Joseph.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Hagan, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Carroll. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand. Becky, 5-0. Mrs. Joseph?
Okay, one statement, one thing I was supposed to put back on the agenda, but Delia had other ideas. I was supposed to get back with the Head Start persons and finish my negotiation, bring that contract with you. But the meeting was scheduled that afternoon right before the hurricane hit, and I haven't had a chance to talk with her, but I did speak with Ms. Gadsden, and we will get it on next board's agenda. But the statement I would like to make is our community is grateful for the determination, dedication of our school district staff has shown, as well as the assistance we have received from the governor and Commissioner Diaz, the DOE, and the various volunteers from across the state and nation. And we have received assistance from the state and the nation. And the superintendent from Miami has called and offered his assistance. And I had someone from North Carolina call the other day and offer their assistance. And we've been truly blessed, and people have been just out there. And we are committed to continue supporting our students as they return safely to our classrooms. I would also like to personally thank Wakulla County. They brought us some buses over here to use, people.
That's wonderful.
We're short. I've got people all over the state offering assistance, and that's another avenue what we've seen. That's another action, love and action. They brought the buses over here. They didn't say, you can use them, come get them. They brought them over here.
Wow, that's wonderful. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Reeves? All right. Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Madam Superintendent?
Yes, ma'am.
Will you please convey my sincere appreciation to the staff here and to you, and my sincere appreciation to everyone who has given us service, who has rallied around us, who has given us comfort. We appreciate it. We appreciate the community. And all I can say is thank you. Thank you to everybody who's involved. Thank you.
Mr. Carroll?
There's no way to name everybody, but I do appreciate everybody's help that was given, from the lights to the food to everything. And all our employees that's been working diligently. Ms. Joseph, who's been getting after it. Probably from daylight to dark or after. I don't know. She said she slept 30 minutes. That's
a nap.
That's a nap. But anyway, we appreciate that. But I also want to thank Devin and Katie, because I got an opportunity to be out there with them when they was giving out that food. I'm gonna tell you what, that was a blessing. That was a heartbreaking blessing, some of it, because some of them people that came through there, how appreciative they were. It was really touching. But I want to tell you, they worked really hard, and I appreciate them too. And I appreciate all the law enforcement that y'all had going on everywhere.
One more thing, Devin, before you go. My sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, AKA, we did all sorts of things and we fed. I was involved with that monetary donation. My church, Allen Chapel in Greenville, Allen Chapel AME Church, we fed, monetary donation with that. Donnie L. Davis, monetary donation with that. So I was out there involved with the community, and I maybe didn't work where you all worked, but I did work in my community to the best capacity that I could work.
Everybody does what they can do.
Yeah.
That's right.
And monetary, some people want that money.
Alan Chapel, they feed you good, don't they?
Yes, sir, Allen Chapel feeds you good.
Ms. Thompson?
So I will try not to take too much time, but I would like to thank all of my fellow board members. Ms. Gibson, I've seen you out serving in Pinetta. Frankie has been out with Katie and I multiple times serving in the community in Greenville and in Madison. Ms. Vieta, I saw you up at Donnell's store when Katie and I stopped by contributing to that community. Katie has been by my side, and I'm going to try not to cry, you guys. We have delivered food all over this county and I got some for you. We have spent hours trying to coordinate. I was actually designated as the volunteer coordinator for the county throughout the storm, and I have seen people come together like I have never seen before. A lot of our teachers that are out of work have been out serving our community. I would like to thank every teacher, and golly, I can't stop. Why do I have to cry on camera, y'all? But we have seen teachers and students that are out passing out food and taking plates all over this community, and I'm so thankful for everybody that has come together. And I appreciate you guys, and if you need anything, please let us know. We have resources coming in every day. McPhee has been great. They have helped us. Mr. Tim Sanders met with Katie and I yesterday, and we have resources coming in for people in the community if we need them. I have gotten calls every day from different school districts and agencies that want to donate to help us and to help our students as they get back to school. I can't list everybody by name, but I just really want to thank all of you guys for coming together for our community.
Thank you. Ms. Nye?
As tired as I am, I want to say ditto, but I don't feel like it does justice. We have been complimented, I want to tell you guys, for our teachers, our staff here, Ms. Joseph, our law enforcement, for everybody that has rallied around this community for this event. The support that has come out from outside of the county to come here and rally around us and love on us and help us through this has complimented our community and said that this is the best community that they've ever come into and done disaster relief with. And I just think that speaks volume to us as a community and to us as people and the way that we're raising our children and the things that we're doing. And I just want to compliment everybody for, just jumping in and just being the hands and feet and just doing what needs to be done for those that need it. And I just want to commend all of the staff. Ms. Joseph has been out from sun up to sundown. I've passed her by here many mornings and honked the horn at her as I was going to drop off some food and told her to call if she needed us. So I want everybody to know that it's going to take time to get back to where we were, but I think that just the way that we've rallied around one another, we're going to come back stronger than we were.
Thank you, and I'd also like to thank my fellow board members. I know you've put a lot of time, effort, money, dedication. There's so many people to thank you don't know where to begin. I've never been through anything like this, and I've been sort of hanging at Pinetta Fire Department and helping out there, and I was happy to do it, and I'll continue to do it this week. The law enforcement, I can never say enough about them. You're here all the time. This is not just rallying around now. I mean, you do. I know. Everyone has a lot of help, and I can't say enough for you. I mean, you're disrespected like a lot of other people are a lot of the times, but you are, in my A+. That's all I'm going to say about that. Ms. Joseph, I want to thank you. You have done a wonderful job keeping us abreast of what's going on. And you are the spokesman for the district, and you've been letting us know, and I appreciate all the work that you've done and your entire staff also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Charlie's also, I got over to Charlie's Restaurant today, and all the extra funds AKA had, we gave all that to Charlie's
I'll
Restaurant.
tell you, I
too.
need some food, I'm hungry.
And, you said that
We're
you had,
speaking of
you
food.
said that you had something for me because I'm special need.
I went home the other
What
night.
you
I
got
couldn't
for-
find any
I'll
food.
get you some stuff.
I just
I'm
got
special
some.
need.
Look at you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand. All right, thank you. Meeting adjourned.